Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Mathaliul Ayyubi, and I am as the moderator of this presentation. First of all, I will introduce our group, and our material for deliver is about English as foreign language and English as second language. And I'll introduce you all of the presenter today. The first presenter is Elok Putri Chumairo, the second is Mathaliul Ayyubi, and the last is Mathaliul Anwar.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Elok Putri. Here I'm the first presenter and I will explain about the definition of English as a foreign language and English as a second language. The definition of English as a foreign language as a world language is taught among other in schools, but there is no regional variety of English in foreign language situation of this kind. Therefore, the hundreds of thousands of learners of English tend to have an instrumental motivation for learning the foreign language. And the teaching of modern language in school has an educational functions, and the older learners who deliberately set out the learned English has a clear instrumental intention, and he wants to visit England to be able to communicate with English speaking tourists or friends, and to be able to read English in books and newspaper. Learners of English as a foreign language have a choice of language variety to large extent that second language learners. The Japanese situation is one in which both British and American varieties are equally acceptable and both are taught. The choice of variety is partly influenced by the availability of teacher, partly by geographical location and political influence. And jadi definition of English as a foreign language itu English as a foreign language is the term used to describe the study of English by non-native speakers in countries where English is not the dominant language. And some example of countries where English is considered a foreign language are Japan, China, Indonesia, France, and Brazil. In these countries, English is not the official or main language, and most people do not use it in their daily lives. However, some people might learn English for personal, academic, or professional reasons, such as traveling, studying, and working in international contexts. And the second definition, English as a second language. English as second language is a traditional term for the use or study of the English language by non-native speaker in English-speaking environments. It is also known as an English for speaker of others' language. The environment may be a country in which English is the mother tongue. For example, Australia, US, or one in which English has an established role, also known as English for speakers of other language. English as second language also refers to specialist approach to language teaching designs for those whose primary language is not English. English as second language corresponds roughly to the outer circle described by linguist breakthrough in standard condition in sociolinguistic realism, the English language in the outer circle. Jadi, definisi dari English as a second language itu adalah refers to the learning and use of the English language by individuals who have a different native or first language. ESL or English as second language, programs and courses are designed to help non-native speakers develop their English language skill, including speaking, listening, reading, and writing, to effectively communicate and participate in English-speaking environment.
Okay, the second or B is identify factors affecting English as a foreign language. English can be a foreign language when it's not the main language spoken in a country. People who are learning English in this place are usually referred to as English learners of English as foreign language or EFL students. This happens because English is not their native or first language. They learn English in school or through other language programs to communicate with people from different countries, study abroad, or work in international settings. So the main factors that English is not becoming the first language or English becoming a foreign language, because in that country, in that area, is not daily and general is not using English as the main language, such as, for example, is in Indonesian country, we have a lot of language such as Madurese, Javanese, Sundanese, and the other language. So we are not using English as our first language. And also, for example, I am from Madura, so my first language is Madurese language, and also Indonesian language. So English is a foreign language for me. There are several factors that can affect the acquisition and learning of English as a foreign language. Here are some commonly recognized factors. The first is socio-cultural factors. These include cultural attitudes toward English, social norms, and the importance placed on English language proficiency in a particular community or country. As I mentioned before, that the country that not using English in daily activities or daily communication would have English as foreign language. And why they have to study English? Because English is spread all around the world and used as the main language to communicate with the other people from the another country. So we can communicate with English. The second is motivation and attitude. Individual motivation, interest, and positive attitudes towards learning English can greatly impact language acquisition. So the motivation and attitude, like me as Indonesian child, see the English native speaker that as like, oh yeah, they are cool, they are great using English language. So English is fun, English is cool. And the third is language input and exposure. The availability and quality of English language input through media, literature, and interactions with proficiency speakers play a crucial role in language development. So it is like we are having some education, not education, but entertainment in our handphone, in our television, that the speakers are using English. So there are input for us, so that we are watching the English speaker, and then we are motivated, and that is some input. For teacher quality and instructional approach, effective teaching strategies, including communication-focused methods, can significantly enhance language learning. So if you are studying in your school about English, and your teacher is not English, so that is not that is not much help you as the student. So for example, in our campus, the teacher of English subject is using English because it is easier for students to helps them in understanding the language, in understanding about what subject or what material given, and also it can build good a good place for learning English. And the last is age and cognitive development. The age at which individuals begin learning English and their stage of cognitive development can affect language learning outcomes. And of course, the baby and any of youngsters cannot study English as well as us as a teenager, as the juvenile, or even for the oldest age, because their cognitive is not as good as not good as our. So the older person, so the cognitive will improve better in learning language.
Okay, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Mathaliul Anwar. I will explain about identify factors affecting English as a second language. When we learning about a second language, we must to have some factors. So in this paper, we have four factors. The first factor is the motivating factor. Motivating is an inner impulse, a momentary impulse, an emotion or a desire that moves a person to do something. In a language study has the assumption that the person inside him or her access the desire, drive, or goal to be achieved in a learning second language. It tends to be more effective than the one who studies with nothing to build the relation in learning second language. Motivation has a dual function, that is integrative function and instrumental function. Motivation will self-integrative when the desire or drive grows to study second language is due to communicate with the language speaker society, while instrumental factors arise when it encourages the person that have the will study the second language because of worthwhile purpose such as obtaining a job, social mobility, or something else. Of of the job of the two functions above, experts in linguistics have a conclusion varying on the why factors are more inherent in a person in relation to learning second language. The second factor is egg factor. Egg factor. It is commonly thought that in learning second language, children are more effective than adults. But the results of this study to X factor in second language suggest that in the case of inhalation, there seems to be slight factor in age. Science, the recruitment of child and adult childs about appears to be the same. In terms of the speed and success to be learning, it is summarized can have a better luck with phonology system or pronunciation. Even many of them can attain pronunciation like native speakers. Adult master the morphological and syntax sets more quickly, at least at the beginning of learning. The end result is that children always have more success than adults, although not always sooner. The third factor is formal presentation factor. The formal presentation of language learning, either the first language or the second language, must have had an effect on the speed and success of language acquisition because of some of the factors that were indeed prepared and conducted on purpose. Of course, it is got to be on supports adequate environment and learning sites of supports in addition to the technical methods described earlier. Another things that also effective to the success of formula presentation in a class like this was a teacher students themselves. A teachers and student must be proper person high in integrity and in line with the language he know best of good qualification and appropriate teaching methods. In the meantime, students had to have strong instructional discipline in order to master the language by they were learning. The last factor is the first language factor. Linguistic scholars have long argued that the first language had great impact on the second language master process. Some have even argued that the first language or mother tongue or first language in nuisance in the learning of second language. It is because It can be sure speakers who already mastered the first language of learning language the second language alone and will try to the match in intervention of write codes and stuff from their first language to the second language, causing some error, but some of these theories hypotheses might suggest that, according to the stimulant theory proposed by the integrative behaviorism, language is the result of stimulant behavior. So, if a learner wants to increase speech, so he or she must increase stimulus received. Therefore, the role of the environment as a source of coming stimulus become dominant and powerful essential in assisting the second language mastery process. Besides, the also behaviorism call language a process breeding. That's why the more people want to master language, so it is help to multiple stimulus and respond for his or her stimulus. Constructive theory states that the success in learning second language, such as learning in class or in outdoor,